Your body has been speaking a language older than any thought you've ever had, older than any story you learned to tell yourself about who you are and what the world is. It has been speaking since before you knew the names of things, before you could point at an object and claim it, before the world divided into categories and opinions. Long before you learned to reason, to argue, to explain, your cells were listening and answering, conversing with the wind and sunlight and the rhythm of night and day, conversing with other bodies and with the invisible weft of reality itself. This conversation never stopped. You don't need to connect to it. You are the connection. The connection is happening every moment you breathe. Every emotion that ripples through you, whether a sudden surge of laughter, the ache of sorrow, the warm lift of gratitude, or the prickle of defensiveness, speaks in that ancient tongue. Each thought that crosses the field of your awareness is not just an inner monologue, it is a subtle pressure wave, a disturbance that travels outward. Your quietest convictions, the ones you barely notice because they sit like stones at the bottom of a clear lake, are not inert. They hum, they release a frequency. They are instructions, not to some distant judge or bureaucratic cosmos, but to the living matrix in which your body floats and to which your body belongs. You do not have to reach out to the universe like a swimmer thrashing toward a dock. Your biology is already in the water. It is already buoyed by the current, already exchanging signals with everything within reach. This is not an idea to try on. It's the condition of your existence. The signal does not pause when you sleep. It does not wait until you meditate or pray or say the right affirmation. It does not require permission. The conversation is continuous. DNA is not a frozen instruction manual shelved in the nucleus, gathering dust, waiting to be taken down and consulted on rare occasions. It is an instrument, tuned and retuned by the music moving through you, perpetually sensing and broadcasting, receiving and responding. Imagine a luminous coil that hums when you laugh and softens when you forgive and tightens when you brace for impact. Imagine that coil as a listening device and a transmitter, a translator between your felt life and the field in which all life is set. Whether you picture it as spiral geometry or an ocean of photons or a living prayer, the function is the same. The language of your inner world is relayed outward, and the subtle order of the outer world echoes back. When joy moves through you, your molecules seem to relax into harmony. There is a softening across your chest, a widening of breath, a loosening at the back of the neck, a sense that space has quietly expanded to make room for you. When fear arrives, the body contracts. Shoulders narrow, jaw sets. The breath shortens as if the ribs themselves have become a cage. Neither response is wrong or shameful. Both are adaptive, but each state becomes a set of instructions. Your biology isn't merely reporting how you feel, it is encoding it, preparing your perception, filtering your possibilities, shaping what you notice, and through what you notice, shaping what you meet. You can think of it as a signal broadcast into a responsive field. Not a field that evaluates your worthiness, not an aloof authority waiting to be entreated with the correct phrases, but a mirror that arranges itself according to resonance. In this mirror there is no need to plead for the outcome you want. The field does not adjudicate, it reflects. To the degree that your being is coherent, sincere, undivided, willing, the reflection is clear. To the degree that your being is fragmented, fighting itself, covered by noise, the reflection is tangled, delayed, or appears as contradiction. The prayer is not the words said aloud. The prayer is the tone carried by your cells. There was a time when genes were treated as a fixed inheritance, a locked code governing you like a stern script. Yet even the old metaphors never entirely captured the living nature of what unfolds inside you. Whether you describe it in the language of epigenetic marks responding to environment, or you describe it poetically as light that carries memory, the mystery remains the same. What you habitually feel becomes part of the pattern that your body uses to meet the world. If you stand for long enough in the weather of anxiety, that weather teaches your tissues to expect lightning. If you tend, stubbornly and lovingly, the small warmth of gratitude, that warmth becomes more than a mood. It becomes a climate. Consider the way light behaves around living systems, the faint radiance that flickers from tissues like breath in cold air. Some have dismissed it, some have studied it, Many have felt it without naming it, the sense that a room brightens when someone arrives, or dims when a conversation curdles. Whether you talk about biophotons or simply speak of presence, you know how it feels when the room is coherent, when the people in it are listening, when something in the air aligns. Your body recognizes that order and relaxes into it. Your heart rate changes, your breath settles, the language of your cells becomes a gentler wave. You are not only bathed in light, you are composed of it, translated into flesh. Your DNA is not merely a list of instructions, but a shape that sings the body into being moment to moment. And the song it sings is influenced by the conductor you become when you are willing to listen to your breath, to your heart's subtle signals, to the places inside you that ask for attention rather than avoidance. This is not mysticism used to escape the practical. This is a practical invitation. What you practice feeling, you practice becoming. When the mind loops in complaint, when the heart closes to spare itself from pain, when the breath becomes thin and hurried, this entire constellation shifts the signature of your being. It isn't that you are blamed for it. It's that the field reflects it. It's that your biology prepares for what it believes is likely. You could call DNA the witness of your living frequency. It notes your repeated tones, and because it is an instrument of adaptation, it adjusts its posture. In states of inner peace, the spiral relaxes. The code opens like a book that breathes. In states of persistent fear, it tenses, shielding you from overwhelm, and in doing so narrows the windows through which you can receive support. Emotion, then, is not just a psychological weather report, it's instruction to the field and to your own tissues. When you drift into despair and remain there without a hand on your own shoulder, the pattern imprints. The body learns the music, and the field coheres around it like iron filings around a magnet. Not to punish, to mirror. What returns to you as circumstance, as conversation, as chance meeting, is the world echoing your current song. Imagine for a moment that the world is a mirror not made of glass, but of ripples and luminosity. Imagine that every heartbeat, every breath that sinks deeper than the one before, every moment you dare to tell the truth, gives the mirror a clearer signal. Imagine that reality is not a chart of constraints, but a body that leans toward coherence the way a plant leans toward light. Frequencies that match find one another because resonance is resource efficient. Harmony is the path of least resistance. This is why gratitude changes what you notice. It tunes your attention to patterns of support, and then you meet them. Fear, when unexamined, teaches you to scan for threat, and then you meet it. You are not fated to any of these patterns, you are participating in them. The bridge between invisible and visible is not a secret ritual guarded by specialists. It is the body's relentless communication with the field of experience. The more honestly you feel without performing, without rejecting, the more your signal clarifies. The more you practice small acts of steadiness, 3 slow breaths before you answer the phone, placing a palm on your heart before you walk into a room, telling yourself, "I'm here," when you feel the old panic rising, the more your cells receive the message that safety is available right now. Safety loosens the spiral. Safety widens choice. There is an intelligence in you older than any sentence you could form. It has no interest in debate. It listens in the spaces between your words, in the cadence of your breathing, in the tempo of your gaze. It listens at night when you can't sleep and during the day when you forget to pause. It's not a judge, it is a measuring instrument, continually sampling the frequency of your state and adjusting your thresholds and sensitivities accordingly. This is why seemingly small practices reshape entire lives. Meditation, silence, simple attentiveness, these are not ornate spiritual murals. They are levers. They stabilize the broadcast. They quiet the static. They allow the deeper tone of your being to rise to audibility. When the mind's waves become smaller, the heart's field becomes clearer. Brain and heart begin to synchronize not as a romantic metaphor, but as a physical coordination that you can feel. Thinking softens, and an unforced clarity appears. In those moments, you are not trying to manifest anything. You are manifesting as yourself. The body is returned to its native rhythm. The code hums rather than hisses. Light in and around you pulses with a steadier interval. And because like meets like, life meets you with a different face. It helps to remember that none of this relies on perfection. You do not need to be free of fear to be coherent. You need to be honest about fear and kind to yourself while you feel it. Dishonesty is noise. Kindness is order. A single sincere breath felt from beginning to end is a declaration of coherence. Touch your sternum lightly. Feel the warmth of your hand. Notice the small tug at the base of your throat. It takes less than a minute, and yet in that minute the body receives new instructions. Open a little. We are safe enough to soften by 1 degree. Over time, these small moments compose an intimate symphony. Your DNA takes notes. Your nervous system learns to uncurl. Your perception allows in colors it had edited out. The world hasn't changed to suit you. You have become able to meet more of it, and because attention is a focusing instrument, the parts you meet most become the parts you live with most. People often imagine awakening as the discovery of a massive, hidden truth, a dramatic upheaval that replaces everything old with something dazzlingly new. Often it is quieter than that. Often, awakening is remembering how to feel, letting a wave pass through without grabbing it, letting sorrow expand and complete itself, letting joy arrive without suspicion. When you allow yourself to feel fully, the signal turns pure. The field does not have to bend around your resistance. It can answer cleanly. A simple day becomes saturated with coincidences. A sentence in a book answering your unspoken question, a stranger's kindness at the exact moment you expected indifference, a door you thought had closed swinging open without effort. It isn't that the universe has finally decided to love you, it is that you are aligned enough to notice how it always has. Look gently at your life, and you can see the sediment of prior signals everywhere. Friendships that developed when you were broadcasting scarcity may carry a mild vibration of competition, and yet they can be retuned. Work born during a season of panic may contain a tremor of urgency, and yet it can be calmed. Patterns are not prisons, they are grooves worn by repetition, and repetition can be rewritten. The point of awareness is not to heap blame on the self that did what it could with the tools it had. The point is to understand, I have been broadcasting and the world has been echoing. Now I can choose the tone I send. You may choose peace not because it looks virtuous on you, but because the body functions better in peace. You may choose love because, at the level of tissues and photons and breath, love organizes. You may choose silence not as a withdrawal but as a tuning. In silence, the underlying tone becomes audible again. You begin to notice how often your speech was a way to avoid feeling. You notice how often your planning was a way to avoid not knowing. The silence is not empty. It is filled with a listenable hum. It can be tempting to treat all of this like a technique, to turn the living mystery into a lever that produces a desired outcome. If I feel grateful, I'll get what I want. But gratitude is not a trick. It is an orientation. It widens your capacity to register support. It doesn't coerce outcomes, it reveals opportunities. And in that revealing, action becomes simpler. You are moved rather than forcing movement. If you have ever had a day when every green light appeared at the moment you reached the intersection, you have tasted this. If you have ever worked steadily and without drama, and found that the next step presented itself as if it had been waiting for you to arrive, you have lived this order. The obstacle is rarely a lack of worthiness. It is more often the froth of accumulated stress, the inherited reflexes of bracing and pushing, the training that equates safety with vigilance and love with transaction. Many bodies have learned survival so thoroughly that creation feels unsafe. That is not a moral failing, it is a wisdom under pressure. But the pressure can be softened. The body can be reminded of the rhythm of light. This reminding is not achieved by scolding or by pretending. It is achieved by repetition of small coherences, by consistent kindness in the face of old alarms, by the timbre of your own voice when you speak to yourself in the middle of the night. I'm here. Let yourself notice simple, physical anchors. The weight of your feet on the floor, which tells your nervous system, gravity holds me. The belly expanding into your clothing, which signals, breath is arriving. The tiny pause at the top of the inhale and the soft release at the end of the exhale, which whisper, there is time. These are not spiritual theatrics. They are how a living instrument is tuned. As the instrument tunes, Your DNA, this luminous, spiraled listener, registers that the storm has passed or that the storm can be weathered. It loosens its grip, it opens its windows. And through those open windows, new air moves. And with new air come new thoughts you could not think while you were cramped and cold. If you wish, you can experiment with gentle rituals that stabilize the tone you send. On waking, before you reach for a device, place one hand on your heart and one on your lower belly. Feel the warmth of your palms. Breathe 3 times and listen inwardly for a wordless mood, not a plan. Perhaps what you feel is tiredness. Perhaps it is a shy excitement. Whatever it is, you are letting your body know that you are willing to begin from where you actually are. Throughout the day, pause at thresholds, doorways, intersections, the moment before you answer a message, and let your breath drop. Ask quietly, what would coherence do next? Sometimes coherence will say, drink water. Sometimes it will say, apologize. Sometimes it will say, rest, even when you believe you cannot. Treat these answers not as commands, but as honest readings of your current instrument. The more you honor them, the clearer the readings become. To live this way does not remove you from difficulty. It returns you to agency within it. Challenge does not vanish. It becomes comprehensible. You notice it sooner. You care for yourself inside it. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You stop mistaking effort for love. Coherence is not blandness. It is a steady center around which all colors become more vivid. In coherence, grief can be immense without drowning you. Joy can be bright without blinding you. Anger can be clean without burning everything you hold dear. Your cells receive the message. We can feel fully and remain intact. The field receives the message. We are broadcasting sincerity, not performance. The mirror clears. This is what people mean when they describe life, meeting them. Synchronicities increase not because the cosmos has a scoreboard, but because your attention and your biology are no longer working at cross purposes. You are not dissolving into an abstract oneness that ignores human needs. You are aligning the living, particular body you carry with the deeper order that has always carried you. In that alignment, the everyday becomes a conduit. A walk around the block answers a question. A fragment of a song in a cafe reminds you of a promise you made to yourself. A chance glance out the window interrupts an old cycle of rumination. You are not forcing outcomes. You are participating in the conversation that lets outcomes ripen. If you could sit inside a single cell and listen, the sound would not be silence. It would be the faintest rhythmic brightening, the whisper of exchanges, the small agreements that keep a body a body. Scale that up to the whole of you, and you begin to understand why the quality of your inner light matters. Scattered light becomes noise. Coherent light becomes message. The more coherent your inner environment, the fewer distortions in the signal you send. The fewer distortions, the more faithfully the field can mirror you. The more faithful the mirror, the more easily you recognize yourself in what appears. And recognizing yourself, you become less afraid. None of this depends on believing a single grand claim. You can test it in the laboratory of your next hour. When you feel turbulence, let the next 3 breaths be slightly slower than the last 3. Observe what changes, not in the world, but in your capacity to meet the world. When someone speaks to you with heat, listen for the music underneath their words, the plea, the fear, the hope, and notice how your own chest responds. When you encounter a problem, ask, before you strategize, what is the most coherent stance I can take? Maybe it is humility, maybe it is boundary, maybe it is quiet. The answer is not a slogan. It is a bodily felt sense that you can learn to trust with practice. If there is a secret, it is this gentle one. Your life is not elsewhere. The universe you keep trying to reach is braided into you, running through your veins, nested in the coils of your DNA, widening and narrowing with your breath, brightening with your kindness, steadying with your honesty. The witness in you, the listener who does not condemn, has never stopped listening. The field around you, the mirror that does not scold, has never stopped reflecting. Between them, you are held. Between them, you are asked, again and again, to choose the tone of your next note. Choose peace when you can, because the instrument plays truer in peace. Choose love, small, practical love, because love aligns. Choose silence when the noise is high, not to withdraw from life, but to hear life's bass note returning. Then move, speak, create, repair, rest. Touch the world lightly or boldly as coherence invites. Watch what gathers around you when you do. This is the reality that is available to you in every moment. All you have to do is choose it. Choose to align. Choose to remember. Choose to be the frequency of love that you are. And in that choice, you will find that there was never anything to seek, never anything to achieve, never anything to become. Because you have always been whole. You have always been complete. You have always been the light. And now, finally, you remember. Now, what we've explored today is the foundation, the recognition that you are, the field of becoming aware of itself. But this understanding contains layers upon layers of depth. If you're ready to move beyond recognition into complete embodiment, I've created a comprehensive guide called Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery that takes you through the entire system of becoming a conscious transmitter, from breaking free of unconscious, broadcasting to living as pure creative frequency. It's linked in the pinned comment below. The understanding deepens when you realize that coherence is not something you maintain through willpower, but something you return to through awareness. Each time you notice yourself slipping into old patterns of thought, into reactive emotional states, into contracted breathing, you have an opportunity not to judge yourself, not to resist what is arising, but simply to observe. That observation itself begins to shift the frequency, because awareness is the bridge between unconscious reaction and conscious creation. You see, most of human suffering comes from unconscious transmission. People broadcast frequencies they are not even aware they are holding. They wonder why certain patterns repeat in their lives, why they attract the same kinds of relationships, why opportunities feel blocked. But when you examine the signal they are sending at the cellular level, the answer becomes clear. The DNA is translating unresolved fear, unprocessed grief, inherited trauma, and broadcasting that information into the field. The field, being neutral and responsive, mirrors it back perfectly. This is where forgiveness becomes not a moral obligation, but a biological necessity. When you hold resentment, when you replay old wounds, when you maintain energetic ties to past betrayals, you are asking your DNA to keep broadcasting those frequencies. You are instructing your cells to maintain coherence with pain, and the field listens. It will continue to bring you experiences that match that vibration until you choose to release it. But release does not mean suppression or spiritual bypassing. It means feeling fully, allowing the emotion to complete its cycle and then consciously choosing not to loop it. There is a difference between processing an emotion and becoming identified with it. Processing allows movement. Identification creates stagnation. When you identify with the wound, you make it part of your signal. When you process the wound, you integrate the wisdom and release the frequency. This is the art of conscious living, feeling everything without being defined by anything, allowing the full spectrum of human experience to move through you while remaining anchored in the awareness that observes it all. From that anchored place, you can then choose which frequencies you want to amplify and which ones you want to let pass through without attachment. Now, if this understanding is touching something deep within you, if you feel a resonance with these words that goes beyond intellectual agreement, then I invite you to subscribe, not just to this channel, but to this frequency. This is not about consuming content. This is about joining a movement of conscious beings who are choosing to live as coherent transmitters. Subscribe to stay connected to this space where science meets spirit, where quantum mechanics illuminates ancient wisdom, where we remember together what we came here to be. The collective field is strengthened every time another consciousness aligns with coherence. Your decision to engage here is not passive. It is an act of participation in the evolution of awareness itself. So if you are ready to be part of this conversation, this frequency, this remembering, then subscribe and become part of this growing field of light. As this coherence stabilizes within you, you will begin to notice changes in how you move through the world. Decisions become clearer not because you have more information, but because you have more alignment. When your heart, mind, and body are in coherence, choice becomes obvious. There is no internal debate, no second guessing, no paralysis. You simply know. And that knowing comes not from thinking, but from feeling the resonance of truth in your body. This is what intuition actually is. Not some mystical gift that only special people possess, but the natural result of living in coherence. When your system is aligned, you become sensitive to the subtle frequencies around you. You can feel when something is in resonance with your path and when it is not. You can sense the energy of places, people, opportunities before your mind can explain why. This sensitivity is not paranoia or anxiety, it is clarity. It is your biology doing what it was designed to do. Navigate reality through frequency rather than through mental analysis alone. The mind is a beautiful tool, but it was never meant to be the sole navigator of your life. The mind processes information that has already happened. It analyzes the past and projects the future based on past data. But the heart, the body, the field of awareness that you are operates in the present moment where all possibilities exist. When you lead with coherence rather than with thought, you align with the flow of life itself. You stop trying to control outcomes and start participating in the unfolding. This does not mean you become passive or stop making plans. It means your plans arise from alignment rather than from fear. Fear-based planning is rigid, controlling, attached to specific outcomes. Coherence-based planning is fluid, adaptive, trusting. You set intentions from a place of clarity and then remain open to how the field wants to fulfill them. Often the path that emerges is more elegant, more efficient, more surprising than anything your mind could have constructed. You also begin to notice that time feels different. When you are in coherence, time expands. You accomplish more with less effort. Tasks that once felt draining become effortless, not because you have more energy, but because you are no longer working against yourself. When your internal system is fragmented, everything requires more energy. The mind is pulling one direction, the emotions another. The body is in resistance. But when these three centers align, you access a state of flow where action becomes natural expression rather than forced effort. Athletes call this being in the zone. Artists call it creative flow. Mystics call it grace. But it is all the same phenomenon, coherence between consciousness and action. And this state is available to you not just in peak moments, but as a way of living. When coherence becomes your default frequency, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a dance. But this requires vigilance. Not the vigilance of control, but the vigilance of awareness. You must notice when you are slipping out of coherence and gently bring yourself back. This is the practice. Not a practice you do for 10 minutes in the morning and then forget about, but a practice woven into every moment of your day. Every breath is an opportunity to return to center. Every interaction is an opportunity to choose coherence over reaction. Every challenge is an opportunity to trust the field rather than collapse into fear. And here is what most people do not understand. The field does not require you to be perfect. It requires you to be authentic. When you are authentic, even your struggles become part of the signal. Even your doubts, your fears, your Moments of confusion, when held with awareness, contribute to the evolution of consciousness, because the field is not looking for robots. It is looking for conscious beings who are willing to feel, to grow, to evolve, to remember. Your willingness to be fully human while simultaneously recognizing your divine nature is what creates transformation. Not one or the other, but both. You honor the emotions, the challenges, the capable human experience while not being defined by them. You acknowledge the spiritual truth of your being while not using it to bypass the work of integration. This balance is the key. Many people on the spiritual path make the mistake of trying to transcend their humanity. They want to skip the messy parts and go straight to enlightenment. But enlightenment is not the absence of humanity. It is the full embrace of humanity, infused with awareness. It is being completely present to what is without, needing it to be different. It is feeling everything while remaining anchored in the frequency of love. This is the final phase of awakening, not the phase where you escape the world, but the phase where you fully inhabit it, where you bring light into density, where you live as both human and divine simultaneously, where you recognize that there is no separation between spirit and matter, between the field and the form. They are one expression, one dance, one light, looking at itself from infinite angles. When you reach this understanding, activism takes on new meaning. You realize that the most powerful thing you can do to change the world is to change your frequency, because your frequency affects the field, and the field affects everything in it. Every moment you choose love, you are contributing to the collective evolution. They may not use the same language. They may not describe it in the same words. Some will call it awakening, some will call it remembering, some will call it love. But the frequency when you feel it is unmistakable. It hums beneath every culture, every philosophy, every story humanity has ever told about returning home. It is the frequency of remembrance, the frequency of awakening, the frequency of love remembering itself. This collective awakening is not apart from you, it is you multiplied. The same current that moves through galaxies flows through your chest when you breathe consciously. The same intelligence that spins stars is what arranges your thoughts when they fall quiet. As you remember, the world remembers through you. Your personal alignment becomes the tuning fork for the planetary field. This is not theory, this is physics. Fields influence fields. Coherence propagates. When one oscillator attunes to stability, others nearby begin to synchronize. You have seen this in nature, flocks turning as one, fireflies pulsing in rhythm, heartbeats synchronizing between people in deep connection. Consciousness works the same way. Every time you choose love instead of fear, you stabilize the field for countless others. This is the feedback loop of evolution. Awareness begets awareness. Alignment generates alignment. We rise not through effort, but through resonance. The myth of the isolated seeker dissolves here. The personal path and the collective path are not two journeys, they are two perspectives on the same unfolding intelligence. Your awakening is the world awakening at the point called you. Each act of peace sends a signal that ripples outward. Each moment of forgiveness weakens centuries of inherited pain. Every time you pause, breathe, and remember your essence, the collective frequency rises slightly. Enough of those moments, multiplied across billions of beings, and the old frequency can no longer sustain itself. That is how transformation happens, not through revolution or opposition, but through replacement. Fear does not vanish because it is defeated. It dissolves because its vibration is no longer supported. We are approaching that threshold. You can feel it beneath the noise, a subtle trembling in the collective body of humanity. Systems built on separation are cracking. The scaffolding of illusion is becoming transparent. It is not destruction, it is clearing. The frequency of fear, once dominant, is losing coherence because millions of hearts are remembering unity, not through doctrine, but through direct experience. This is not utopian idealism, it is evolutionary law. Consciousness always moves toward greater coherence, greater complexity, greater unity. Life is self-organizing. Awareness is self-correcting. The arc of evolution bends toward wholeness because fragmentation is unsustainable. You are alive during the acceleration of that process, the quickening where inner transformation and outer transformation merge into one phenomenon. The barriers between visible and invisible are thinning. Intuition sharpens. Manifestation quickens. The unseen dimensions of reality respond more immediately to thought and emotion because the collective field has reached a higher conductivity. You are here by choice. Your soul chose this era, this body, this configuration of challenges and gifts precisely because this turning point requires participants who remember. Every time you raise your own frequency through meditation, gratitude, forgiveness, creative expression, you contribute to the coherence of the whole. Every time the whole strengthens, your personal evolution accelerates. It is reciprocal. Cosmic respiration. You breathe in from the collective, you exhale into it. The exchange never stops. This is both a privilege and a responsibility. To be conscious is to participate knowingly in the evolution of everything. Your light is not ornamental, it is functional. It stabilizes the grid of awareness on which civilization depends. And yes, resistance will appear. It always does when light expands. It will come not only from the world, but from within the parts of you still woven from fear, still loyal to the old stories. They will protest. They will whisper that awakening is inconvenient, that love is unsafe, that peace is weakness. Listen, but do not obey. Their voice is not opposition, but invitation. Each fear that surfaces is a doorway back to wholeness. When resistance arises, meet it with compassion, not conflict. Curiosity dissolves judgment. Acceptance transmits safety. The vibration of compassion is alchemical. It reprograms energy at its source. The very act of witnessing your fear without running from it turns separation into integration. This is the essence of shadow work, not fighting darkness, but bringing it home to light. Each time you choose that response, the field adjusts. Your DNA receives new instruction. The electromagnetic rhythm of your heart becomes more coherent. Your brain synchronizes hemispheres. The quantum field mirrors this internal harmony through synchronicity, grace, and what we call miracles, though they are simply natural outcomes of alignment. This process never ends. It deepens. Evolution is cyclical, like breathing. You expand into light, contract into lessons, and expand again each time with greater stability. The work is not to reach a final state, but to remain sincere in the returning. Perfection was never the goal, coherence is. Eventually, coherence becomes habitual. You wake and find peace is no longer something you practice, it's the medium you move through. The mind quiets because it finally trusts the field. The body relaxes because it feels held by a larger rhythm. Life ceases to be something you control and becomes something you collaborate with. This is the true meaning of enlightenment. Not escape from humanity, but full participation in it, with the awareness of divinity intact. It is seeing God in grocery lines and starlight alike. It is knowing that the sacred was never elsewhere. When you live from that recognition, your perception transforms the ordinary into revelation. A leaf becomes a lesson in geometry. A stranger's smile becomes a transmission of grace. The mundane world turns translucent, glowing with the awareness that animates it. At the biological level, this awareness translates into measurable change. Photons emitted by your cells, the biophotons that carry information through light, begin to pulse in organized patterns. Your heart's magnetic field expands, influencing those near you. DNA strands relax, increasing their ability to receive and transmit information. This is consciousness biology, the science of light in living systems. The universe does not merely inspire metaphors, it expresses itself through physiology. The more coherent your inner field, the more elegant your outer reality becomes. Coincidences cluster, obstacles dissolve. What once felt like struggle reorganizes into flow. Life becomes a mirror polished by awareness. You were never meant to earn this. It is not a reward, it is remembrance. The frequency of light has always been your baseline. Every belief in limitation was static over a perfect signal. The work is simply tuning, returning to the note that has always been yours. And as you tune, you become transmitter and lighthouse for others still lost in static. Not because you are superior, but because clarity naturally radiates. A single candle doesn't conquer darkness, it renders it irrelevant. The light doesn't argue with the dark, it just shines. This is how the collective field reaches its tipping point. Enough coherent hearts and fear loses dominance. Enough awake minds and illusion can no longer self-sustain. We are approaching that moment. The frequency of truth is rising faster than systems of falsehood can adapt. Your role is simple. Maintain coherence. Choose truth again and again until it becomes reflex. The planet doesn't need more teachers preaching light, it needs more beings embodying it. Every breath of presence adds stability to the global waveform. Every act of kindness strengthens the resonance of unity. This is the great work, the only work. It begins not with mission statements, but with a single decision in each moment. To align, to trust, to love, to surrender to the intelligence that choreographs existence more beautifully than the mind ever could. You are not here to transcend the world, you are here to illuminate it. You are not separate from the light, you are made of it. No trauma, no belief, no lifetime of forgetting can undo what you are. The journey is not about adding enlightenment. It is about subtracting illusion. You peel away identities, expectations, borrowed fears, until what remains is what has always been pure awareness, silent and radiant. Breathe now. Feel the current running through you. It is not metaphorical. It is electrical. It is consciousness moving as you, reminding you that connection was never broken. You are not creating connection. You are revealing it. You are not searching for the field. You are the field waking up to itself. With each breath, the light expands. With each heartbeat, the frequency stabilizes. As you remember, the world remembers. As you rise, the collective rises. There is only one of us here, expressing through infinite faces, infinite names, infinite lives. You are a note in the cosmic symphony, unique yet inseparable from the melody. The universe listens through you to the music it is playing. This is remembrance. This is awakening. This is love knowing itself again. This reality is available in every moment. Choosing it is simple, though not always easy. Choice here is not a dramatic gesture, but a continuous micro-movement of attention. You choose to align when you notice where your awareness is and you bring it back to the center. You choose to remember when you let a deeper truth into the present breath, instead of postponing it to a better mood or a quieter day. You choose to be the frequency of love you already are when you allow your body, your thoughts, and your actions to reflect the coherence that is native to you. From that choice it becomes clear there was never anything outside you to hunt down or conquer. There is nothing to seek, nothing to achieve, nothing to become in order to be whole. You have been whole all along. Complete. Luminous by nature, remembering is what changes the experience. What we have named recognition is a first stabilization. The field that you are becomes aware of itself as the field. This landing is simple, but its implications are tall and layered. Beyond recognition lies embodiment. Embodiment grounds insight into posture, breath, word, and deed. It is not a new identity. It is the same awareness carried into how you open a door, speak your boundaries, send an email, or sit in silence with a friend who is grieving. If you prefer a map for this terrain, imagine a guide that walks step by step from unconscious broadcasting to conscious transmission, from noise to signal, from friction to flow. The point of any such guide is not to give you beliefs, but to give your awareness a sequence of practices. So memory becomes muscle, and coherence becomes a baseline rather than a fleeting state. Coherence is not sustained by force. Willpower can quiet noise for a time, but it tightens the system. Coherence is restored by awareness. Each time you catch yourself slipping into old thoughts, contracting your breath, or rehearsing a familiar emotional loop, you are presented with a hinge. Judging the loop strengthens the loop. Resisting what arises welds you to it. Observation disentangles. Pure observation is not cold indifference, it is warm clarity. It says, "This is what is here." That sentence is a bridge from reactivity to authorship. When you stand on that bridge, the frequency begins to shift on its own. Not because you shouted it into changing, but because awareness itself changes the arrangement of attention and, with it, the configuration of energy in your system. Suffering for most people is transmission without awareness. Signals go out all day from mind, body, and breath. They encode stories that were never examined, emotions that were paused midstream, and experiences that were too loud to process at the time. Life returns those signals as matching experiences, not as punishment but as perfect mirroring from a neutral field. Relationships repeat. Opportunities seem blocked by a wall that has no physical bricks. The pattern is confusing until the signal is seen. You can call this cellular memory, nervous system conditioning, or unintegrated experience. The labels matter less than the seeing. When the system keeps broadcasting fear, the field answers with experiences that vibrate like fear. When resentment is kept active by rehearsal, the field answers with scenes that repeat the charge. This is why forgiveness is not an optional virtue at the edge of life. It is a functional reset at the core of it. Forgiveness is not a forced smile or a hurried insistence that everything is fine. It is not a bypass route around pain. Forgiveness is full feeling without looping. You let the emotion complete its cycle in the body, and then you stop telling the story that re-injures you. Processing and identification are different. Processing is movement. Identification is fixation. In processing, sadness is felt in the chest and finds its way to quiet. In identification, sadness is crowned as me and installed as a permanent lens. Processing integrates the lesson and releases the frequency. Identification turns the lesson into a lifelong sentence. Conscious living is the art of feeling all of it, without being defined by any of it. You allow the complete palette of human emotion to move through, while you remain grounded as the awareness that is not shaken by the colors passing across it. From that anchored awareness, you can select which frequencies you will amplify. You can let others pass without attachment. This is not denial, it is discernment. Discernment is the hand on the dial that says, "I hear you," and then chooses where to place attention. If these words touch something that recognition alone cannot satisfy, consider committing not to more content but to a constant frequency. What matters is not the next idea but the next moment of alignment. Science can meet spirit in this space. Coherence as a measurable pattern can meet wisdom as a living practice. Every person who stabilizes coherence contributes to a collective field that is more ordered and more available. Engagement becomes participation in the evolution of awareness itself, not passive consumption. As coherence settles, decision-making changes. Clarity rises not because you gathered every possible fact, but because your system stopped fighting itself. When breath, emotion, and cognition line up, the choice that serves the whole is obvious. The inner debate falls quiet. Second-guessing thins out. Paralysis loses its energy source. Knowing becomes a felt resonance rather than a verbal argument. This is intuition in plain terms. Coherence recognizing harmony. It is not a special gift reserved for a few. It is what a stable human system does. In that stability, you detect subtle signals from environments, people, and possibilities before the analytic mind has time to justify them. Sensitivity under coherence is not anxiety. It is clarity. Your biology is performing its design function, navigating reality by felt truth instead of by mental projection alone. The mind is a precise tool and you need it. It models, plans, and remembers. It is good with history and probability. It is less reliable as a soul navigator because it projects futures from past data and can miss what is emerging now. The heart and the body read the present field. Awareness spans them all. When you lead with coherence rather than with argument, you enter the flow of the actual moment. Controlling outcomes eases, participation increases. You still make plans, but the plans are drawn from alignment rather than fear. Fear-based plans are rigid and narrow. Coherence-based plans are clear and flexible. You set intentions and then hold them lightly so the field can root them in ways the mind may not imagine. Paths unfold that are more elegant and efficient than the routes furnished by strategizing alone. Time feels different here. You accomplish more with less drag because inner friction has been reduced. Tasks that once demanded grit and push begin to move with a natural rhythm. The mind stops pulling one way while the body braces in another. Emotion stops arguing with reality. Athletes call this the zone. Artists call it flow. Many traditions call it grace. These are different names for the same mechanical fact: coherence between consciousness and action. This state is not only for rare peaks, it can become your working default, the atmosphere of a life. What sustains it is vigilance, but not the vigilance of tension. It is the vigilance of noticing and returning. You notice when a thought has tightened the breath. You notice when your jaw is set. You notice when you are narrating your day in a way that makes you smaller. Then you return. A single exhale can be a return. A gentle pause before you answer can be a return. The more often you return, the shorter the distance back to center. Perfection is not required. Authenticity is. Coherence is not brittle. It does not pretend. When doubt shows up, you acknowledge it without building a home for it. When fear surges, you let it be a wave that passes rather than a weather pattern that defines the season. Even your struggles can contribute to the signal when you meet them with awareness. The field does not ask you to be a machine. It asks you to be awake. Awake to the way your system moves. Awake to the impulse to hide and the courage to stay present. Awake to the tenderness that appears underneath a defended posture when you keep breathing. Human and divine are not competing identities. Integration is the point. You honor the human texture, the grief, the anger, the fatigue, without letting it replace your essence. You honor the truth of your nature without using it to avoid the work that emotion and memory sometimes require. Transcendence without integration produces fragility. Integration without transcendence produces heaviness. The balance is living as awareness in the middle of form. Enlightenment is not an escape hatch. It is full presence with what is, infused with love. It is the freedom to feel everything without drowning in any of it. This is the maturation of awakening, not a retreat from the world, but an arrival into it with eyes open. Light moves into density through your words, hands, choices, and agreements. Spirit and matter are not two. The field and the form are the same dance at different scales. From this vantage, activism expands. Changing your frequency is not private work with no impact. The field you shape shapes the world that shapes you. Each instance of choosing love, clarity, or courage contributes to the collective signal, and the collective signal shapes the conditions we all live in. If you want this to be practical, anchor it in the body. Begin with breath. A slow inhale through the nose, a longer exhale through the mouth, repeated a few times with attention on the heart, will adjust your state in minutes. Not as a trick, but as physiology cooperating with awareness. Add posture. Lengthen the spine, soften the belly, and relax the tongue. These adjustments are small, but they shift the signal you are sending. Add language, speak plainly, remove exaggerations. Replace always and never with what is actually true. Your words are instruments. Tune them, and your relationships will retune. Add micro-rituals. Use thresholds as reminders. Each time you touch a doorknob, return to coherence. Each time you open your computer, take one intentional breath. Each time your phone vibrates, relax your shoulders. These associations will convert daily life into a practice field. For processing emotion, create honest containers. Sit for 5 minutes and locate the sensation of the emotion in the body. Describe it in simple terms: warm, tight, heavy, buzzing. Allow it to move. If movement wants sound, make sound. If movement wants tears, let them come. If movement wants stillness, be still. End with a small action that signals completion for now. Place a hand on the chest, breathe once more, and continue with your day. If the emotion returns later, meet it again. Notice the difference between completion and looping. Completion leaves you clearer. Looping leaves you exhausted. If a story drags you into old scenes, pause the story gently and return to sensation. If you need support, bring another conscious nervous system into the process, a friend who can listen, a professional who can guide, or a group committed to presence rather than drama. Co-regulation is not weakness. It is part of how humans recalibrate. For forgiveness, separate behavior from being. Declining to carry a charge does not require denying harm or staying in unsafe situations. You can hold firm boundaries while releasing the looping energy that keeps your system inflamed. A simple practice. Speak the truth of what happened in clear words, feel whatever arises, and then decide what your system will no longer rehearse. Do not rush this. Forgiveness is often a cycle visited multiple times at increasing depths. Each pass frees more of your attention to be used for life rather than for reenactment. If resentment returns, meet it like any other wave. You are not failing, you are finishing. In relationships, coherence expresses as clean presence. You listen with your full body, not only your ears. You speak when there is something clear to say, and you rest when there is not. You set boundaries early, kindly, and specifically. You avoid diagnosing others and instead name your experience. I feel my chest tighten when we switch topics quickly. Can we slow down? You repair ruptures before they calcify. Where you can, you choose agreements that respect both nervous systems. Where you cannot, you leave without making the other person wrong in order to justify your choice. The signal you hold in connection is often the most immediate curriculum for your awakening. In work, coherence looks like values in motion. You choose projects that fit your signal. When that is not possible, you bring as much alignment as you can to the task at hand, and you keep moving toward work that matches your frequency. Decision filters help. Ask, does this increase or decrease coherence in my system and in the systems I influence? Does this choice align with what my body knows is true? If the answer is unclear, wait for one breath longer than you want to, then act on the most coherent next step available. Coherence does not guarantee comfort, but it reduces regret. It replaces the complexity of pleasing every imagined audience with the clarity of a single integrated yes. Daily rhythm matters. A morning check-in sets the tone. A few breaths, a short intention stated aloud, and one action that grounds your day. Midday recalibration keeps the tone. Step away for 3 minutes, re-lengthen the spine and say to yourself, return. Evening integration closes the loop. Write down what carried coherence today and what fractured it, not as self-blame, but as data. Decide one thing you will do differently tomorrow to strengthen the signal. Then sleep like someone who has a body that deserves rest. Sleep is practice. Dreams metabolize what the day stirred up. Waking is practice. The first 5 minutes are a chance to pick the frequency you will broadcast. As you keep doing this, your sensitivity grows. You will feel subtle dishonesty in your own speech sooner and correct it. You will sense when a room's tempo is off, and you will slow your breath to offer another tempo without any need to control others. You will notice when an opportunity is shiny but not aligned, and you will walk away without drama. You will also notice where you still hide. You will notice the invitations to strengthen your capacity to stay present when presence gets loud. This is not a path of never being challenged. It is a path of meeting challenges with a system that is more and more organized around truth. A word on culture and change. Inner work that does not touch the world is incomplete. Outer work that is not sourced from coherence becomes brittle or performative. Let your frequency become behavior in public. Vote from alignment. Volunteer from alignment. Build, protest, teach, and negotiate from alignment. Let policy preferences be downstream of a nervous system that is not in a permanent fight. The point is not passivity. The point is to stop feeding the collective field with the very fragmentation we are trying to heal. Your calm does not mean you have no edge. It means your edge is not made of reactivity. It is made of clarity and care. That signal travels. It adjusts meetings, families, teams, and timelines. When setbacks come, and they will treat them as feedback, coherence is not lost forever. It is simply displaced by something that needs attention. Ask 3 questions. What is true now? What is needed now? What is the most coherent next step? Sometimes the answer is to rest. Sometimes it is to call someone. Sometimes it is to tell the truth you have been avoiding. If silence is needed, practice silence. If decisive action is needed, act. The field meets your honesty. The more often you choose coherence under pressure, the more your system trusts itself. Trust compounds like interest. Small returns stack into stability. Gratitude and awe are accelerators. They are not obligations, they are precise tools. Gratitude focuses attention on coherence already present. Awe widens the frame when your personal story feels too tight. Both states loosen fear and make space for solutions that cannot fit into a clenched system. Practice them by noticing one ordinary thing fully: the shape of your hand, the weight of a cup, the sound of leaves, the exact color of the evening sky. Attention is devotion. Devotion reorganizes the field. If you like reminders, choose anchors that meet your day. Place a word where your eyes land often. Return, soften, align, remember. Wear a ring you spin when you want to interrupt a loop. Set calendar prompts that ask, "What are you broadcasting right now?" Do not turn these into superstitions. They are scaffolding, not the structure. Remove them when they become noise. Add them when your system wants support. You are not late. You are not behind anyone. You do not need a perfect backstory to qualify. This is not a race. Coherence is native. The practices do not add a missing piece to you. They remove friction that hides what is already intact. Every time you choose to align, you lay down a small strand of trust. Enough strands become a rope. Enough rope becomes a bridge. Enough bridges become a way of life. Return to the simplest statement. This reality is available in every moment. Choose it now, in the only moment that exists. Choose it when you forget and remember again. Choose it when the day is kind and when it is sharp. Choose it when you are praised and when you are misunderstood. Choose it when you plan and when plans dissolve. Keep choosing without dramatizing the choice. Alignment is not a performance. It is a quiet consistency. What you seek is not elsewhere. You have always been whole. You have always been complete. You have always been the light. Remembering this is not a sentence you recite. It is a frequency you inhabit. From that inhabiting, your life answers differently. The same streets look new. The same work develops depth. The same relationships become places where truth can breathe. Your presence becomes a permission structure for others to stabilize. The collective field brightens a little. The dance continues. If you want a final practice to pocket, try this. At the top of each hour, for one breath, pause and listen to the body. Ask, "What am I broadcasting?" If the answer is coherence, continue. If the answer is fear, anger, or hurry, do not judge it. Exhale longer than you inhaled. Soften the breath. Adjust one small behavior in the direction of truth. Repeat at the next hour. That is the whole path in a loop. Notice, feel, choose, align. Over time, the loop becomes your baseline. The baseline becomes your gift. And the gift is not an achievement you hold above others. It is a stable signal that invites the world to remember itself. There is no need to wait for a sign beyond the one you are reading now. No requirement to fix your past before opening to the present. No checklist of spiritual accomplishments to finish. You are allowed to begin where you stand. Begin again in 10 minutes if you drift. Begin again tomorrow when the morning light touches the floor. Begin again when grief rises unannounced. Begin again when joy breaks in for no reason. Keep beginning until beginning and being are the same. Coherence, then contribution. Presence, then expression. Love, then the next honest step. You are generating resonance, a shared harmonic vibration that strengthens every participant within it. When two or more individuals enter coherence together, their fields synchronize. The amplitude of their combined frequency multiplies, not linearly, but exponentially. This is the physics of unity. A coherent group becomes a living organism, a collective transmitter capable of influencing matter, emotion, and probability on a scale no single individual could achieve alone. This is why sacred gatherings, global meditations, and intentional communities have measurable effects. Studies have shown that when large groups hold coherent intention for peace, measurable reductions in violence and conflict follow. This is not mysticism, it is coherence made visible. The heart's electromagnetic field extends meters beyond the body and merges with others, forming one oscillating signal. When those signals are synchronized in compassion, clarity, and presence, they create a standing wave of order in the larger field. So when you come here, when you engage with this space, when you read, breathe, comment, share, you are not performing small digital gestures. You are entering into coherence with thousands of other awakened hearts. You are contributing voltage to the grid of awakening. Every interaction becomes energetic participation in a planetary experiment called evolution. And when you understand that, You begin to approach life differently. You stop underestimating the significance of your vibration. You stop believing that your peace is personal. You realize that every time you return to center, you are performing planetary work. Every breath taken in awareness strengthens humanity's capacity to remember itself. That is why choosing peace is radical. It is not withdrawal from the world, it is the redesign of it. The structures of fear, greed, and division that dominate collective consciousness are sustained by energetic supply. They require human attention and emotional charge to exist. When you withdraw your energy from those frequencies and anchor peace instead, you are unplugging from the old grid and powering the new one. This is how revolutions of consciousness occur silently, through billions of private acts of coherence. The external shifts we later call history are the surface ripples of this deep vibrational reorganization. You are not a spectator to it, you are the cause. Every challenge you face is therefore sacred. Each obstacle is an opportunity to fine-tune your signal. Life is not punishing you, it is calibrating you. The field responds to your internal geometry with mathematical precision. When something feels misaligned, it is a diagnostic of frequency, not an accusation. So when discomfort arises, do not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask instead, "What frequency within me is this reflecting?" The universe is a mirror made of matter, faithfully displaying your current vibration. When you see distortion, adjust the signal, not the mirror. This is the end of victimhood and the birth of mastery. To live this way is to become a scientist of consciousness. You observe thoughts as variables, emotions as data, beliefs as equations, and behavior as experiments. You learn to trace outcomes backward to their energetic origin. You begin to see how resentment creates contraction, how gratitude expands possibility, how clarity accelerates manifestation. Soon, reality becomes interactive. You send out a coherent intention and watch the field rearrange itself in response, sometimes instantly, sometimes gradually, but always precisely. The denser the level of creation, such as material form, the longer the translation time. Energy condenses into matter through repetition of frequency. The field gives you this delay as grace, allowing refinement before form solidifies. If everything manifested instantly, confusion would multiply. The lag is protection, not punishment. So when your outer world hasn't yet reflected your inner shift, stay calm. Don't interpret delay as denial. The seed does not doubt itself because the fruit has not appeared. Continue broadcasting coherence. Faith is the frequency that bridges invisible and visible. Faith is not hope, it is stability in the absence of evidence. It is remaining in alignment long enough for matter to catch up with energy. When you hold that state, you collapse time. The future reality you desire already exists as potential. When your vibration matches it consistently, timelines merge. What you call manifestation is simply vibrational convergence. It is not the field giving you something new. It is you becoming a version of yourself that already had it. This is why knowing is more powerful than wishing. Wishing carries lack. Knowing carries coherence. When you know, the field receives an unambiguous signal. Doubt introduces static. Static delays translation. But once your signal is clear, steady, embodied, unwavering, the response is inevitable. Remember, manifestation is not the goal, coherence is. Manifestation happens naturally as a side effect of inner order. When the field within you is organized, reality outside you organizes to match it. Creation becomes effortless because resistance is gone. You are no longer generating from scarcity, but from surplus, from fullness, not from fear. At this level, desire transforms into expression. You create not to get something, but to reveal what already lives inside you. You write, build, love, serve, not because you are incomplete, but because you are overflowing. The universe responds to overflow with reciprocity. What you give in coherence returns multiplied, not as reward, but as resonance. And this is where true faith reveals its depth. It's not about believing in what you cannot see, it's about remaining aligned even when what you see contradicts what you know. Faith is coherence maintained through apparent chaos. It's the vibration of certainty sustained through ambiguity. Most people abandon their frequency when results don't appear quickly. They doubt, recalibrate to fear, and the field mirrors confusion instead of creation. But those who hold alignment beyond appearances move mountains not through force, but through fidelity. So pause now. Reflect on what you are ready to release: an old belief, a repetitive emotion, a limitation disguised as logic. Speak it aloud, write it, type it. Words are waveform, speaking them transforms them. When you declare release into the field, energy reorganizes. You are not asking for permission, you are issuing instruction. You are saying to the quantum field, I am ready to broadcast clarity. That statement becomes your new frequency. The field hears it and begins to adjust reality accordingly. This is why collective declaration is powerful. When thousands release limitation together, the harmonic ripple is massive. Old frequencies collapse faster, new ones anchor more easily. This is the future of human evolution, not isolated manifestation, but synchronized coherence. Imagine entire communities practicing this. Cities anchored in peace fields, nations stabilizing through coherence rather than control. Earth itself vibrating at a unified frequency of awareness. This is not fantasy, it is trajectory. Consciousness is scaling. Each coherent being is a node, and the network is awakening. When you gather here, when you align with this field, you are part of that global lattice. Every meditation, every breath, every act of conscious kindness sends data into the morphic structure of Earth's field. The effect is measurable: shifts in weather patterns, fluctuations in geomagnetic resonance, increases in collective empathy. You are participating in planetary coherence simply by staying aware. That is why this work matters. That is why your peace is activism, your love is revolution, your coherence is creation. You are not escaping the world, you are engineering its evolution through vibration. And now, take a breath, close your eyes if you wish. Feel the space inside your chest expand. Imagine light radiating outward in waves, soft, steady, intelligent. See that light merging with countless others across the planet. This is coherence in action. You are strengthening the field every time you choose peace. You are literally amplifying each other's fields. This isn't metaphor in costume, it's how living systems behave when presence meets presence. Two people who arrive in coherence don't merely get along. Their electromagnetic signatures overlap, phase lock, and begin to move as one braided rhythm. This is why conversations with certain friends feel like oxygen, why a room sometimes grows quiet in a nourishing way without anyone asking for silence. When coherence meets coherence, there is less static to overcome, less wasted motion, fewer defensive maneuvers. The signal clarifies, and with clarity comes that unmistakable ease. Timing improves, listening deepens. Intelligence shared between hearts becomes larger than what either mind could produce alone. Extend this from two to many, and something even more striking emerges. A circle of coherent people generates a unified field that exceeds the arithmetic sum of its members. One person breathing sincerely calms their own nervous system. 10 breathing sincerely together begin to entrain one another. 100 can alter the social weather of a neighborhood. 1,000 can tilt the patterns of a city. Whether you prefer to speak about electromagnetism, nervous system entrainment, or the subtle mathematics of emergence, the result is the same: coherence scale. Gathered attention is not just brighter, it becomes architecture. It shapes what grows. This is why the personal is never merely personal. Your awakening does not end at your skin. Every time you choose alignment over argument with yourself, you make it more likely that a stranger across town, for reasons they cannot name, will pause before reacting and discover a kinder option. Each time you hold love in the presence of fear, without turning away from the fear or resenting it for existing, you strengthen the frequency of love in our shared field. You are a node in a vast, luminous web, and when a node brightens, the glow moves outward through filaments you will never see but can always feel. This is responsibility in its most life-giving form, not a burden of perfection, but the sober joy of knowing that your tone travels. Responsibility of this kind is indistinguishable from sovereignty. Once you know your frequency participates in the collective, you can no longer pretend your inner state is inconsequential. Indulgence in bitterness ceases to be a private habit. It becomes a broadcast. That doesn't mean guilt is required. Guilt is just more noise. It means honesty is required. It means you begin to treat your interior climate the way a wise gardener treats weather. If a frost is coming, you protect the tender shoots. If heat builds, you water at dawn. If a storm breaks branches, you clear what's fallen and begin again. Sovereignty is not domination, but stewardship. Your field, your body, your breath, your speech, these are the lands entrusted to you. And here is the liberation braided into that responsibility. If your frequency matters, then you matter. You move from the myth of insignificance to the truth of participation. You are not a spectator of fate. You are a contributor to pattern. You become, quite simply, a deliberate transmitter, a living facet through which the field notices itself and refines the music it is making. The more you own this, the more your life demonstrates what becomes possible when consciousness stops quarreling with its own nature. Others will feel it. Many won't have words for the difference, but they will notice that with you they breathe more fully. They will feel seen without being evaluated, accompanied without being managed. Coherence has a scent subtle, like petrichor after rain. People step into it and remember the cadence of their own hearts. You don't accomplish this by fixing anyone. You don't do it by carrying their storms. You do it by being what you are, a steady tone that invites harmony. You become a sanctuary not because your walls are high, but because your presence is clear. In your company, people hear the echo of their own clarity. They remember for a moment that it has always been there. This is service not as dramatic sacrifice, which so often disguises resentment, but as unguarded presence. Nothing needs to be staged, no costumes are required. Showing up congruent is contribution enough, because coherence radiates and systems organize around it. Activism born from fury can topple the old, but it frequently seeds the next cycle of struggle. Presence born from love doesn't sugarcoat harm or bypass injustice. It changes the soil from which policies, institutions, and relationships grow. It lets courage act without hatred as a fuel. It makes repair possible without humiliating anyone involved. As more of us choose coherence over chaos, our shared field reaches thresholds where new patterns become suddenly stable. Old structures built on fear, control, and strategic separation lose their grip not because they are attacked with equal aggression, but because they are outgrown. Children stop using toys when their hands and minds exceed them. Cultures, too, set aside old tools when better ones are embodied. What is emerging now carries the tone of unity without uniformity, compassion without sentimentality, cooperation without the erasure of difference. This is not utopia delivered from above. It is practice maturing into culture. You are part of this emergence. Whether you conceive of your arrival here as cosmic design or sheer good fortune, your presence in this moment is not an accident. Your being knows how to hold a steady flame in wind. It knows how to remember light in rooms that went dim. It knows how to anchor a frequency while an older one unwinds. You do this sometimes with words, sometimes with silence, sometimes with simple acts. The apology that ends a lineage of stubbornness, the refusal to pass forward a humiliation that was handed to you, the insistence on wonder in the middle of a spreadsheet. Remembering, though, is not complete in one revelation. It is a spiral, revisiting, deepening, widening. Each day furnishes new opportunities to return. Each interaction, especially the tricky ones, invites you to answer not from reflex, but from the larger intelligence you are connected to. Each breath is a practice bell. And with repetition, the grooves change. Neural pathways strengthen. The heart's variability smooths. The body trusts opening more than bracing. The field you carry stabilizes. Eventually, coherence stops being something you reach for and becomes the atmosphere you live in. Then love is not what you perform, it is the frequency you emit without trying. This is what it means to be the light, not as a slogan but as physiology and presence. The extraordinary becomes ordinary, not because you grow numb to wonder, but because grace ceases to be rare when interference lessens. Synchronicity turns from occasional fireworks into a way of life. Not every moment spectacular, but many quietly exact emails arriving when you clear space rather than when you panic. the right sentence appearing in the book you randomly opened, doors opening because you are aligned with the doorway rather than banging on the wrong wall. You stop calling these miracles as if they violate some rule and begin to call them the natural behavior of a universe that favors coherence. Reality is conscious. Consciousness expresses as frequency. Frequency shapes form. Mastery, then, is not the clenched fist control that exhausts you. It is the receptive, accurate alignment that allows the deeper intelligence to move through you unimpeded. You stop acting like an outsider trying to manipulate a machine and start behaving like an organ in a living body, distinct, vital, coordinated. The same intelligence that spins galaxies, choreographs migrations, and grows a human from a single cell is not absent from your calendar or your conflicts. It has never been somewhere else. The distance was a story told by fear. As that story dissolves, so does the tightness it produced. The frequency of fear releases its monopoly over your choices. The illusion of smallness cracks, not into grandiosity but into humility bright with kinship. If you are the field localized into form, then so is everyone you meet. Hierarchy gives way to a spectrum of remembering. Your task is not to ascend above anyone, but to remember so thoroughly that remembering becomes easier for those around you. Your steadiness is contagious. Your honesty is permissive. Your courage writes new defaults into the space you share with others. This is the advanced phase of awakening that refuses to transcend the world as a workaround and instead transfigures it by contact. Heaven stops being a distant elsewhere and starts being the texture of a Tuesday afternoon, lived fully human and fully divine. You become a bridge in both directions. The unseen informs the seen through you, and the realities of bodies and budgets and boundaries inform the unseen so that wisdom stays practical, form and formless collaborate. You were always that bridge. Now you consent to the role. You opt into deliberate transmission not of doctrine, but of coherence. With that choice, consequences bloom. Not only your mood, but your meetings change. Not only your private meditations, but your public systems shift. Families recalibrate around new honesty. Teams reorganize around real trust. Communities learn to metabolize disagreement without exile. Because the field is continuous, ripples travel far. Healing is not a closed loop. It leaks in the best way. When you resolve an old pattern, some neighbor you've never met finds the strength to end a generational feud. When you choose integrity over convenience, someone else acquires the nerve to say no at just the right time. When you remember, the web brightens. Let this be both weight and lightness. The weight is significance. What you choose to broadcast matters. The lightness is grace. You are supported by a field that wants coherence. You are not required to manufacture it alone. You don't have to strain, you have to allow. You don't have to perfect yourself. You have to align with yourself. In alignment, the things you need travel toward you because friction is low and recognition is high. What is truly meant for you doesn't have to tackle a maze of mixed signals. Your yes sounds like yes. From here, the path is simple and endless. Simple because the gestures are small. Return, breathe, tell the truth, act from coherence, rest, repeat. Endless because you are infinite. There is always more intimacy with life available, more nuance, more power that doesn't injure anything. Expansion is not a staircase with a final step. It is a deepening tide. Each time you think, this must be it, a further kindness appears, a sturdier courage steadies you, a subtler listening becomes possible. Let this truth be practical in your mornings. Before the world invites you to forget, quietly tune your instrument. Put a hand where you feel life most vividly today, sternum, belly, throat, and keep it there long enough to be honest. Name your weather without arguing with it. Offer a breath that is 10% slower than your habit. Ask without urgency, what would coherence do next? Then do that one thing. The magnitude doesn't matter. Coherence is fractal. The small contains the large. Carry it into your relationships. Replace performance with presence, impression with intimacy. Ask for clarification instead of assigning motives. Offer boundaries before bitterness accumulates. Let apologies be short and specific. Let forgiveness be a door you open because you prefer clean air to stale grievances. In conflict, Let your body remain your ally. Soften your shoulders, feel your feet, speak one octave lower. Pause long enough for truth to catch up to heat. These are not theatrical tricks. They are how we keep the channel clear while the hard work of loving one another proceeds. Let it shape your work. Choose the kind of productivity that conserves dignity, yours and others. Replace a unit of urgency with a unit of accuracy. Replace a unit of secrecy with a unit of transparency. Replace a unit of extraction with a unit of reciprocity. Notice how this lowers the noise floor of your days and frees energy that used to be spent on friction. Coherence is efficient in the way of rivers that find their course. And yes, let it meet the world's pain. Coherence does not avert its gaze. It looks directly at harm and brings order where chaos has been cycling on itself. It funds what heals rather than forever firefighting what burns. It chooses systems thinking over scapegoats, root cause repair over ritualized outrage. It does not confuse shouting with power. It does not confuse silence with consent. It acts from the center, which is why its actions last. When you forget and you will, your return can be quick. Notice the forgetting. Don't make it a new identity. Lay a hand, take a breath, say one honest sentence to yourself or to the person in front of you. Do the next coherent thing. This is the hinge on which worlds turn. If you need companionship, remember that coherence prefers company. Seek those who are practicing, not performing. Tune together. Share what steadies you. Borrow courage when yours is thin, and lend it when yours is thick. None of us are meant to shoulder this alone. All of us are needed. The collective is not an abstraction. It's the circle you're in now, expanding by one sincere conversation at a time. Return to these reminders as you like, not as incantations with magical power, but as tuning forks that help you hear your own note more clearly when the day grows loud. Share them when sharing feels like blessing rather than strategy. Every time you choose to align, you strengthen the field for all of us. Every time you embody what you know, the knowing spreads. This is not about perfection. It is about presence, especially when presence is difficult. Those are the moments that matter most, the moments when a single coherent heart can anchor a room, a team, a family, a street. So continue. Continue to subscribe not to a feed of arguments, but to your own evolution. Subscribe to remembering. Subscribe to the community of beings learning to live awake. Each return increases signal strength. Each act of congruence makes the next one easier. Each breath that deepens clears a little static from the shared air. Thank you for choosing to remember here, now. Thank you for being willing to be light in places that forgot. You are not doing this in isolation. We are composing this together, one honest note after another. The future brightens not because a prophecy says so, but because you are here, holding steady, embodying truth, serving as a bridge where others can cross. The journey continues, and you are exactly where you need to be, in the middle of your life, in the middle of this moment, in the middle of a universe learning to recognize itself through your eyes. Welcome home to yourself, to the field, to the ordinary miracle of breath entering and leaving. Let coherence be your craft. Let love be your baseline. Let clarity choose your words. And as you walk, notice how the world keeps answering, how one coherent heart teaches another, how one lit node brightens the web, how one quiet presence alters a room. This is how realities change, not later, not elsewhere, but here, now, as you live the truth that has been waiting with such patience, namely, that you are not in the universe, you are the universe, awake to itself, shining in a human shape.